Hi, everybody. This is
Hello.
Richard and John. We are the founding lore fathers, and tonight we are talking about who put Bella in the witch elm. And I think before we get started with that, there is something that I wanted to bring up and talk about. So I started watching a new Netflix documentary. I only got a few minutes into it. It is a true crime one, and the boyfriend tells a story about his girlfriend getting kidnapped. It's pretty like it's very unbelievable situation. But the cop starts talking to him, and the kid just tells him everything. And then the cop's very clear. We don't think you're a suspect. We want to know what happened. And then after the kid gets done talking, the cop flips the script. He's like, "Nah, dude, I think you did this. How about you just tell me why you did it? I know you did this. I know you did this." Just a friendly reminder: don't ever talk to the cops about a lawyer, especially
Right.
if there's a dead body involved, because they will pin it on you. Just don't take a polygraph test. Talk to the lawyer. So, which leads us into our non PSA thing. John, how about you tell us about Miss Bella?
Alrighty. And I wanted to start out by saying that the 1940s era was like an was a just the crime in the 1940s was just an outtake from movie reels. This story, the more I got into it, the more I realized that everybody involved was completely incompetent. From the investigators to the pathologists to the actually I take that back. I want to walk that back. The pathologist won more awards in Britain than any other pathologist during that time. So he was the only one on the case that probably was taking it serious.
There's got to be at least one. I mean, for
Right,
every
right.
Mo, Larry, and Curly, there's a Chaplin in there somewhere.
It was just comedy on all fronts. It was like the Three Stooges. You ever seen the episode of the Three Stooges where they're in the house and they're trying to fix the plumbing?
Oh yes, yes. I can't. I can see it in my head, but it's been so long since I've seen that. Because I know, like, so they're in the upstairs room, and then he hits him with a wrench. The water starts coming out, and then it starts flooding, and then I can see it all happening.
It
Which I
just
think that's
seems
a
like
perfect analogy for what's going on here.
it's just too many cooks. That's basically what I got from the whole situation. Too many cooks.
I think that it is. I think that so the story. I think it's important to come out there. So this isn't just the 1940s. This is early 1940s. So this is World War II era. So it's not that it's just not enough cooks. It's that all the good cooks are off fighting a war.
That's a good point.
So there you have to figure that element in there as well.
All right. Well, let's just paint a little picture here. So, 1943, April 1943. And we're in England. And I just picture like foggy, cloudy, messy, rainy. I just,
Some
war
bombs echo
sirens
in the
going off.
background
Yeah.
because those fucking no Germans.
And the discovery of the body is what kind of paints the picture for me. What starts out the whole thing is you have four boys out in the woods and they're poaching rabbits and looking
This
for
is
eggs.
straight up Stephen King. Stephen King stole this shit. He plagiarized the story.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
And but that's the difference, Stand by Me, that 1980s brotherhood, everybody's,
Jerry O'Connell's doing coke off strippers' asses at 12.
but even if so, in that movie, we're looking at that era through the children in America. Europe
Well,
just has
these
like
aren't
that,
normal kids. These
right?
these these kids are they're the descendants of World War I survivors. miners, and they're going through they're surviving World War II. So they're, you know, they're street kids. They're vagrants. They understand how to survive. Hell, they're poaching rabbits and stealing ravens' eggs from some rich fuck's
I've
land.
never been so hungry that I've been out in the woods looking for eggs.
Well, just spoiler alert: they find a body. Now, the thing that one of the interesting things that I found in this story is the fact that it took place that they found the body in the woods. So, and before we get too far into the details, so there's woods in the UK. It's a very big deal. So deforestation's been a problem on that island forever. So dating back to like the Industrial Revolution, they chopped down a bunch of fucking wood so they could get coal out, so they could, you know, fucking sing the praises of capitalism. And then like they started having at least in this time frames, there's World War I, World War II's in full swing, at least for them anyway. And so they need supplies. So wood's a supply, timber's a supply. But they also need to cut down a lot of that land so they can have farmland, so they can up their agriculture output. So on top of illegally hunting, I think the conditions at the time, they may have set the boys up to be in even more trouble if they were caught. Like I know, like nowadays, like when you drive through the UK, you see like these random plots of trees. And this is the little fun fact I found, you know, by very short time that I spent out there. But those were decommissioned runways from when the war was over. They just planted trees over that shit. So it's, you know, woods are a big deal. So the fact they're out rummaging around a lord's land, kind of a big deal.
I guess like when because I grew up in the Royal South in America. In the 1980s, we grew up on, it was about 14-acre plot of land. So I grew up in the woods. I grew up, my brother and me, you know, we made little tree forts and we were always out. We picked mushrooms. You know what I'm saying? Sipping alcohol, chasing girls. Like, I feel like the American Pie era of America, my generation definitely got it. You know, it was the greatest time. I just couldn't imagine like this dirty, grimy, filthy, out in the woods. It's cold, it's snowy.
And these I imagine these kids are chimney sweeps too.
Right.
So like they're out there trying to find Mary Poppins.
I remember growing up, you always hear something on the TV about mesothelioma, and it's like this is the generation where that all originated from, because there's no telling what they breathed in.
Oh yeah, there's definitely some black lung going on in there. Like I don't know. I feel like a lot of the people America stateside anyway got black lungs working in coal mines. These people were just breathing that shit in with just some bombs dropping in the background with some fucking German tanks, of Panzers, just conveniently whizzing by just a few miles over the ridge.
Fun fact, all right. So while we're on the subject of just mesothelioma, so you know, silicosis and all that. During that time when, you know, you had all those coal miners and all that stuff, they're breathing in all that silica dust. One of the treatments for that was they were having them inhale aluminum powder. And you remember the movie The Wizard of Oz, right?
Yeah, Tin Man.
That was the original Tin Man. He had spent some time in the hospital because what it was is they would grease paint him and then hit him in the face with the aluminum powder dust and cover the paint with it. And he had breathed so much of it in, he ended up in the hospital. And
well, they needed to sneeze. They needed that shit to come out sparkly. So it's a whole thing. You know how much money?
Yeah.
You know how much money they spent having a Technicolor movie? It's the first one ever.
Exactly. But the studio kept calling down to the hospital. They're like, are you kidding me? He's in the hospital because of the treatment for this disease. Like, what are you talking about? You know, aluminum powder is perfectly safe. We used pure aluminum powder.
I took 5 milligrams this morning. Shit.
Terrible
if he's got too much aluminum, just leach him.
And the thing is like the only thing worse than the 1940s was the 1840s when they really had no idea.
For sure, dude. Oh, it's a witch. Oh, by the way, there's a witch tie-in for this one too.
Lo and behold, we are drawing conclusions. Evil Knievel couldn't make these leaps.
So the oh shit. So yeah. So while it's on my mind here. So yeah. So the 1800s, medicine was, oh, if it's a woman, it's a witch. So in this time frame, completely unrelated to the case. This I found this on the rabbit hole. Was going through British history. So, this lady named Helen Duncan. I promise this will be just a quick aside, dude. She was the last person charged under the 1735 Witchcraft Acts, and she was charged for fraudulent witchcraft. So she was a grifter who she went around performing like seances, and she was known for finding, air quotes, ectoplasm, which turned out to be like egg whites and some shit. But she got in trouble because she told a bunch of people that a battleship had sunk, and I couldn't tell if she just had leaked information, like she fucked a sailor or something. I don't know. But the court went and they went out of the way to like, this woman's going to fucking jail. We're going to do this, and she eventually got convicted, and she did 9 months hard time. And it was so fucking silly that Winston Churchill actually said something about it. So when he found out, he complained that it was a misuse of court resources on the obsolete tomfoolery of the charge. So if Winston Churchill tells you you're up to tomfoolery, like wartime leader Winston Churchill said tomfoolery, you're a fucking dickhead, dude.
I get derailed as soon as you said she was caught with fake witchcraft. It's like,
yeah, dude. So you're not a witch, but we're charging you anyway. That's like
this is imitation witchcraft. Have I ever seen it?
I'm actually going to be shitting on our judicial systems in general throughout this episode, by the way. So,
all right. So where were we at?
Yeah, so these boys find this dead chick in the woods. Well, I shouldn't say dead chick. They find skeletal remains.
Well, okay, so I put a picture up on our Facebook of a few of the different things that had to do with this case, and one of those was the tree. There is no way I would look at that tree and think eggs. You know what I'm saying? It's like thorny, bushy. It's called a witch elm. And I think witches when I see that tree. Absolutely. Like, I just don't get it. I don't see how they see this scary tree in the wood. And maybe I've seen too many horror movies.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at it right now. Let's pull it up on the screen. I'm not sure if it'll hit there or not. But yeah, I mean, I could see how a bird could go in there and plant a tree. It looks like a weird old nest. While this is up, I'm just gonna scroll through these pages. We got her teeth right here. It's all jagged and shit. And then we have the infamous Who Put Bella in the witch elm screen right there.
Oh, that's the 1940s Banksy right there.
Nice.
I think that's how I described it.
Now, I will say I don't know anything about stealing eggs. So if these these kids are survivors, they're not going to give up. So I'm assuming that they know what the fuck they're doing. Like, I don't know what punishment was in 1940s England. I mean, do they publicly shame you? Like, you get like put in a thing and they throw tomatoes at you? Because I mean, I don't know.
Picture a house full of like train hoppers. And at the end of the day, they all like, all right, everybody in the family sits down in a circle around their bean pot. and just pulls out what they found today. Like, oh, I found a knapsack with 2 sandwiches in. Oh, well, I found this pie chilling on Miss Sullivan's windowsill. Oh, well,
to the blackbird pie.
These eggs were in the witch elm. What else did you find, Timmy?
Well, there was a tooth in one of the eggs.
That was terrible. So. I don't know if I would be more scared of the tree out in the middle of the woods, because the tree to me looked like something you'd find in the front yard of the Addams Family to begin with.
You know, it looks like I've seen this several times where it's like an inch, like the middle of it, and then the arm, like the black blob that's like the arms are reaching out and it's just like eating things. I've seen the video. I don't know if it's an actual, like, I don't know, but it looks intimidating. It does. If you were to tell me that was an alien, like a picture of an alien, I'd probably believe you if it didn't have the leaves and shit all around it.
Well, I mean, just science in general. When they were out there and they're naming plants, they looked at that and they're like, that's a witch elm.
Yep, that's a witch. I don't know what the fuck it's doing, but
that's a witch elm.
Dude, they probably didn't take samples of it for like 2-3 decades.
It looks like, you know, something that you remember when you were a kid, that the show, the cartoon, the Smurfs, they had that, what was his name? They had Gangrel, or what was his name with the cat? The Azrael.
Oh, Gargamel.
That's his name,
or something like that.
He was always trying to cook the Smurfs. Yeah, that looks like what he would have lived in.
Dude, I wonder like how good Smurfs taste. That dude like had one.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
He had to have,
and then he just spent the rest of his life.
Right.
Like you don't just take someone's word. Oh yeah, the Smurfs they're really yummy, and then you spend the rest of your life not eating them. Like
he grew up in 1940s England, poaching rabbits and stealing raven eggs. So he had to have some Smurf.
The cat catches mice, but can't catch a fucking Smurf. You think you get a new cat after a couple of years?
I digress here. You know.
Okay, so they find this. They find the body. They freak out because they shouldn't be in the woods, right?
That was the first thing that came out of their mouths is, okay, we need to make a pact that we never speak about this ever again.
And they cut their hands and the shooken blood. That didn't really happen though. That's a cool element though. I'm going to choose to believe that happened.
I always try to put myself in other people's shoes in these stories when I'm watching them or I'm reading about them, and I couldn't imagine growing up finding a body. You know, it's funny we mentioned Stand By Me earlier because that whole movie was based on them going to see the body.
Yeah.
But I couldn't imagine coming across, you know, and I guess when you think about the skeleton phase, like finding a skull and some bones isn't nearly as frightening as finding, like, I couldn't imagine finding a body in that early stage, you know, like.
So I think that there are varying degrees to this, and I think that your environment plays a heavy role in this. Because I know, like, I saw dead people in the street when I was a kid. Yeah, it just people overdosed. I mean, that was just the nature of where I lived at. You asked a question, you absorbed it, and you moved on. Now, I think finding one as a fucking 14-year-old who's in full-fledged puberty mode probably fucks you up.
Right.
Especially since it's a skull. Especially you go in to grab. I like to imagine he reached in to grab an egg and then went straight to the nose. And then it's like, ew, he got that shiver down his back like you just touched something that you shouldn't fucking touch. I mean,
so what I read is he saw the white top and he's like, oh man, we did it. We found the egg, you know, like this is a big old egg. And he got a stick and he reaches down inside because from what I read, the opening in the tree was about the size of a hamster cage, which we'll get more into that later. when we start talking about how she ended up in the tree to begin with. But here he is fishing around with a stick in there, and he pushes it over, and he starts to see the distinguishing characteristics of, eye sockets. There's hair still stuck to the skull. Different things like that. When he realized, oh my God, this is a skull. And as soon as he's seen those teeth, I'm sure, because you just pulled up a picture of it a minute ago, and it made me laugh all over again. Those front teeth on that skull, man, that's something else.
She's they're the British are notorious for their teeth issues. They don't care the way we have dental care, and I imagine that was only worse back in the day. So I will give Miss Bella some credit. Were they bad for her time? Probably not.
That one is pretty much crisscrossed over the other one, though, and they both they were huge, sticking out. I mean, that was how I was like, well, maybe the whole fact she was in the tree, she was probably trying to, get one more to make her dam so she could stop the wigwam.
Make her dam. Oh, that was a fun one. So, oh yeah, man. But you're talking about putting yourself in their shoes, man. I think it's important. Like, so what's you're doing something illegal and murder. I think murder outweighs everything else. Because I know that go ahead.
I didn't articulate what I was saying earlier. Finding a fresh body as opposed to finding like a skeleton in the woods. If I see a skeleton in the woods, as opposed if I see a fresh body, I'm thinking, hey, I wonder if the perpetrator is still close by. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you find a still warm.
Yeah. Did you just become the second most unlucky person in that area?
Exactly. Yeah. But you find a skeleton, it's not quite as, it's still scary nonetheless.
I think the number of skeletons changes it too. Like if it's just one, or if you roll up and there's like 4 or 5 like skeletons, that's when my mind goes like, okay, this is somebody's like place.
Right.
I need to fucking leave. And there's are cell phones, you know what I mean? Like you can't just shoot off an email like, hey dude, in case I don't make it out.
That's like I was listening to the Ted Bundy tapes when he was finally right before his execution, when he finally admitted that he did it, and he started telling him where all the bodies were. And I think his favorite dumping ground was this mountain in Colorado, and he just body after body, the ones that they found, because when he got rid of somebody, he could really get rid of somebody. You know what I'm saying?
It was a secluded area too. And, I don't, Bundy in particular, I don't think Bundy gave a fuck. You know what I mean? Like, I could see him just like, okay, well, I think this is far enough out. I don't need to dig a grave.
When he didn't have that ruse anymore, when he couldn't fool anybody anymore, and he finally had to surrender to the fact, when he was finally defeated, I think maybe he started to care just a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yo, shout out to Zac Efron for that movie.
He portrayed that very well.
Dude, crushed it. And did I only knew Zac Efron from that movie he did with Seth Rogen, and then I knew he was in some Disney high school movie. I never actually watched it, but I was like, okay, he got blessed. He's a good looking dude, so he's gonna make his way into movies. That dude's got some chops. I mean, he really. Anyone listen to this? There's the Google and watch the movie. It's a fun one, especially if you're into the crime element of things. So.
There's a lot of those guys that start out like that end up, you know what I mean?
I want to see it. So he's got a movie, not to get too far, he's got a movie called The Iron Claw coming out. I'm not going to go see that in theaters, but I will watch that movie.
Right.
Yeah, just he earned my DVD rental or whatever the fuck, uh, Amazon Prime rental or whatever. Um, Go ahead though. I'm sorry for getting too far off track there, man.
Where were we?
We are just talking about how these guys are like freaking out because they're out there being criminals and they found a bigger criminal. They didn't know what to do.
Right. And so they make this pact and they're like, we're never going to speak about that again. And I'm wondering, you could almost set your watch to one of them cracking and telling their parents. Because I'm pretty sure they got home, they washed up, they did their homework, they put their bike in the garage, they sat down to dinner, and probably immediately was like, "We found a body."
Well, the only way that stays a secret is if the dude who found it just doesn't say shit about it. That is a secret I'm taking to my grave. Now there's a I don't remember where I heard this at, but somebody it was a cop. Somebody was taught it was a radio show I was listening to in the morning, but they were talking about like guy goes to talk to the cop, and the cop's like, okay, well, I want to tell you about my perfect plan to get away with murder. So me and my partner, the cop just goes, no,
Right.
no, me and my partner, someone's going to talk. That's
Yep.
not the perfect plan. And so that, that may
If
have
you
changed my opinion on who I can call to help bury a body.
right, if you
So,
do dirt, you got to do it alone because
yeah,
the only time anybody can keep a secret is if it's the other person's dead.
yep. And
And in a
even
way,
then, nowadays, who knows who they text? Little Snapchat here.
right,
So, but I do think it's so that's an interesting thought process, right? Like so the way I'm surviving is by going out and doing this illegal thing. If I go tell the cops that I found a body, I may not be able to survive the way I know how to survive. What do you do?
right,
So like that's a tough one, and especially in modern day, it's like the guy who steals cars. Like, hey, well, what were you doing out here? Yeah, I'm not telling you what I was doing out here, but I do know that this is what I found. And then you go get a lawyer. You don't
exactly.
say
Because
shit else.
every time when you find a body, you're the first suspect.
Yeah, that's just the way things are going to work. Now, well, in that particular situation, because I know, unfortunately, one of my guys a couple of years ago, when we were out doing pest control, like he went to a house, it was just when knocked on the door was full of flies. I was like, dude, don't open that door.
Right.
You don't touch anything else. You just call the cops and you wait. And so, I
Absolutely.
mean, very rarely do you end up in a situation like that, and you don't find a cop who's willing to blame you. It's just the nature of things.
I mean, I saw this video online. This guy was cutting, he went to random places, and a lot of times it was abandoned houses. And he would cut the grass and stuff, clean up the yards, and he would do it so the neighborhood looked better. And he goes to this house, and his wife comes out there, and then they both start smelling death. And he's like, "Oh, it's probably a dog or something like that." And then she leaves. He's like, "All right, well, I'll finish up by myself." He makes her leave. And he turns to the camera and he's like, "Okay, the windows on this house are open." He's like, "I'm going to call the cops and see what's going on." You know what I'm saying?
Oh, dude,
Sure enough,
I need to find that video.
they show up. They go in the house and there's a body inside. And they're like, how do you explain that? Okay, well, what are you doing out here? I just showed up to this yard for no reason and cut this grass because it was out of control.
Yeah, because I'm a good guy, and
Right, right, right. I was
cops have never met a good guy. You know what I mean? It's the nature of their job, really. But yeah, yeah, it's fun stuff. But anyways, so they find the body. They go tell. I don't know what they call cops over there. or who was around, because there's a lot of strange like annotations and names and shit. I know I
They
was looking up. Sorry, go ahead.
they load up and they go down there and they tell the police, all right, the boys were out poaching eggs and whatever. Okay, let's get past that. And they found a skull in the tree. And the first thing out of the cops' mouths were, all right, well, we're going to come back tomorrow morning and we're going to go out there and look. Because in the 1940s, finding a body wasn't pressing.
Well, it's a chain of evidence wasn't a big deal.
Right?
Either.
I mean, they had to have flashlights and all that, right? No, roping off the scene, it gives
Probably.
somebody the chance to go out there and dispose. Like, what if you're out to your secret body hiding stashing spot and you see 4 kids running away looking like they saw a ghost. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to climb in that tree and I'm going to move that body.
Some Scooby-Doo shit to foot, man.
Imagine that. You go back, like the kids take you back out there. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. It's dark. You got the whole police department and everything with you. You've already told your parents, and then the body's gone.
Oh yeah, dude! Like the cop came out and saw like the finger.
I see what's going on here.
These kids are tomfooling around here. Oh, dude!
Let's get back to the fact you were out here poaching eggs.
I missed that part where the cop didn't come back to the next day. I didn't do the deep dive that I normally do with these topics. I missed that level. So I appreciate you bringing that up, man. So we got fucking, what's the British equivalent to Barney? Fuck it. What's you go with? We got Barney out here who says, "Yep, that's a dead body. It's broke," and he just fucking leaves.
Well, I mean, first thing is, they wait till the next morning, because they need daylight and proper coffee and donuts. Wait.
Proper tea and biscuit.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Like they're not going to go out there. They've had their cup of tea and their.
My man went out there in the middle of the night, took one look in the moonlight of that fucking tree and said, "Nope, not fucking doing it." A shift comes on in 2 hours. They have all the paperwork time they need and just rolled out.
So, we're going to have it directly after beans and toast in the morning.
Yeah. It's probably some old dude who couldn't fight in the war. His bones hurt from being up too late. I'm kind of on this guy's side now, man. I kind of agree. Fuck it. Let the other guys deal with it.
Come to think of it, is they go out there and they see the tree. They take a look at the opening. They're like, "Yep, there's a body in there." Well, I'm sorry, remains, because at this point in time, it was a skeleton inside of there. There was no remains left, and they can't pull all the pieces out and get it out the way they need to do it. So they got to cut that tree down. So I kind of understand where they're coming from. You know what I mean? Needing full daylight to do what they got to do.
They probably need a special permit. They got to. So this is to get back to what I was mentioning earlier about woods being a precious resource over there. This is the Haggerty or Haggerly Forest or Woods, and it's owned by the aristocrats, the Littletons. So maybe they needed to go make a phone call, like, "Hey, man, like, I know this is just a heads up. We're going to be out there." You know what I mean? I don't know how that works. Like, I imagine, like, if the Kennedys call you and say, "Hey, we maybe might have accidentally dropped a car with a woman in it in our backyard pond." Do the cops just knock on the door, or do they like, "Hey, man, we're going to be there too"? You know what I mean? Like, that might have been the case here. I don't know. I mean, the aristocratic system, fucking mind blown to me.
So I know, right? I know when they chop the tree down and they finally can get to it, they find a full skeleton minus one hand. That was something that in all, I watched about 4 videos and I read, so many articles. I even checked out in a book that I had found, and all of them illustrate the fact that one of the hands was not with the body.
Yeah, so that was one of the things that I found to be pretty interesting. Not because the hand was somewhere else, but because there was one person who took that and crafted an entire witchcraft ritual
I know,
based on it.
right?
Like it was like, well, it was left 13 paces to the left of the body, and it's like I don't know, it's like an unhanding moment.
The way I looked at it is, I try my mind to think of how things looked when they went down. And it makes sense to me. You have this tiny opening on the tree, and they're which we'll get to them putting the body in the tree to begin with, and how that is a feat that I'll never understand how it was accomplished. But, if they put it in feet first and the hand is, you know what I mean? The hand would be the only thing sticking up out of the top. To think that the animals got to it and, like that was what the animals dragged off, it doesn't surprise me too much.
Well, I think an interesting uh my mindset of not being in America, like they don't have like bears like we do. Like they have like foxes and shit. You know what I mean? I imagine maybe there's some
Exactly.
coyotes over there, but like it's not like there's a pack of wolves roaming around.
Well, even
Like
if
that's just
so,
gonna
it's up in the tree. The wolves aren't gonna drag it out.
I don't know, man. It's the 1940s.
Good
Things were
point.
different back then. Things were different back
If the
then.
kids are in there looking for
Cats
eggs,
lived with dogs
God
back
knows
then,
what the
bro.
wolves are doing.
Everyone was doing their best for the war effort. People, shit was weird. But, I will say. So I didn't know what a witch elm looked like until I got this, and my immediate thought was like a witch, like it's an oak. I had an oak tree in my mind. Like it's okay. That's a tree that's good for either witch rituals or like hanging witches. And this spur looks like a sand spur almost of a
Exactly.
tree. It's just a
I
nightmare.
never looked at that tree and would have thought, let's climb that. Like
No,
you barely get to
that's
it.
like the tree that your mom sends you out back to get a fucking switch off of.
Exactly. That's what I was
Um,
thinking about.
it's a cursed looking thing. So Barney and the gang, well, I shouldn't say. Barney goes to bed, takes his daytime nap, and then the rest of the crew shows up to check out the body. And so they find it, and its hand sticking out. Well, the hand's missing, but the body's in there, and it was like a 2 by 3 like hole opening that the body could have been shoved in. Granted, it's a skeleton at this point. It's a skeletal remains, so I imagine the opening may have closed a little bit based on just the time it takes for things to grow through. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Then I believe like some of the clothing had roots growing into it or something like that.
Yeah. The
So I mean, it had been a
pathologist.
while.
That was something we talked about earlier as the pathologist on this case, and he
Yeah.
was the only one with any sense. And he took a look at the bones. He took a look at everything that was going on with the discovery site, and he determined that it was about 18 months that that body had sat inside of that tree in a
18 months. That's a
roundabout.
year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah. So, which also helped with identifying around the time that this crime could have occurred. It put them around the early 1941, probably sometime in October, maybe in 1941 is what I read, is when this body found its way into the tree to begin with. One of the things that he noticed was that it was almost impossible for the crime to have occurred somewhere else and the person be transplanted there. Because that was the next thing that I was thinking about is, you know, you have a body who's starting to fall into rigor mortis. Like, there's no way you're going to shove that into a tree, into a tiny hole in a tree.
You got like 6 hours, you know what I mean, before that body starts
Three and a
really
half.
like, yeah, it's
It
not
was
it's
like,
not
yeah.
much, you know. Now I am curious. I would like to know. Well, actually, I take it back. I don't actually want to know this, but it is a thought in my mind. I know that modern day we have criminal analysis or crime scene analyst. I can't. There's too many words there. Who will study body decomposition in different elements. So like they'll have basically you donate your body to this university, they'll put you out back and they'll see what happens.
Oh, yeah.
That way they can know this. Like I wonder what 1942 43 forensic sciences like courses is. You know what I mean? Is it like based on like what fucking grave robbers did 100 years prior, or like is it just common knowledge that like Jimmy's been dead? You know, like I
I
wonder,
donated
I
my body
wonder.
to science research. When I
Well,
die,
yeah.
they're going to blow me up.
Did you hear that story, dude? So this guy's suing. So his mom died and she wanted to have her brain studied. Well, she donated her body to have her brain studied. The people she donated the body to sold her body to like Raytheon or some shit, and they tested them. They tested a missile on
Right.
her. So
I
she
heard that
apparently
story and
even
I was like, sign me up.
man, 6 grand, dude. That's enough to pay off a couple bills for your wife or your kids, or you know what I mean.
I looked at it like it would be one of those just really funny moments where, you know, everybody shows up to the hospital. It's my final moments and all that. And as soon as my eyes close and I drift off into that great next wonder, they ship me off into space and
this,
just blow me up.
the suits come in.
My family are just sitting there like, what's going on here? Like, oh, he's property of the government now, and boom.
turns out, turns out the secret to getting into heaven was nuclear explosions. You're just up there with a bunch of like iguanas and shit and fucking Japanese people.
I just
Oh, that was
wish
a
that I
terrible
could
joke.
be there to see the looks on everybody's faces. They're all like sad and they're crying and they're
Oh
heartbroken
yeah,
and
dude. Like your one last wish is like, dear Jesus,
just blow me the fuck
or yeah, let me see my parents' face when I die. as as the suits from whatever
I'm
PAE
gonna
come in.
I'm gonna put in my final wishes. I'm gonna put in that they videotape them blowing me up with a missile, and then that's played at my funeral over and over.
It's part of their advertisement. Do you really want to fuck with your parents after your death? Do you want 6 grand for your? Just imagine like Dan sitting there like drying his eye off with like a couple of like $2 bills because he got the $6,000 check. Oh man.
Another thing that I
Uh,
was reading about that the pathologist noticed was the shoes. Okay, so there was one blue shoe that was inside the tree with the body, and the matching shoe was outside the tree, which I was thinking about that too. Like, you got these kids, they're out there, you know, like from what I read, this was like it wasn't unusual for people to come strolling through this area in the woods. How could a body be inside of that tree without, you know, the insects and the smell attracting attention? That was something that I couldn't get past.
so there were a couple of things there. So the time, so 1943 is when the body was found, right?
Right.
So the war's going on. So a lot of, I think the general population's reduced, right? That doesn't exclude everybody. Obviously, people will still going on walks and stuff like that, right? But the general population's been reduced,
Right.
both from just general war activities, but then seasonally, a lot of rain. You know what I mean? A lot of rain, a
Yeah.
lot of nasty days. If this is the winter time frame too, where it's a fairly mild winter, you know, I could see it. I can see it. Obviously, it got missed. You know, I can see it. I can see it. You know, people not going there in that time frame. You know what I mean? Air sirens going off. You don't want to be out there at night. You don't want to be out there too early in the morning. You don't want to be an easy target.
Good point. It's just,
Yeah.
to find the shoe outside of the tree in the same area, like, the other one is inside. It seemed hard for me to understand how, like, but I guess, in the woods, until somebody finds something, it goes undisturbed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just where it is now. I do know. So I'm not sure if you know this about me or not, but I like to go out every once in a while and clean up trash around the parks in my area and then along the street that I live on. And one of the things that I noticed very early on when doing this is people don't notice how much trash there is in the area that you live in. We're trash blind.
Right.
So this is, obviously this is before consumerism really picked up, right? But this is also post industrial revolution. Are people just used to seeing shit that they don't even notice it?
That's a good
Not
point.
everyone's like, oh shit, that's weird. There's a shoe there. Maybe there's a body. I just think, hey, there's a shoe there. Fuck. I mean, how how many times have you seen a bike on the side of the road?
A bike?
Yeah, just you ever seen a bike on the side of the road?
I live in Raleigh. Like, that's not going to be on the side of the road very long.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. But like, bike on the side of the road. Okay, did somebody leave that there? Maybe. Did somebody get brutally kidnapped?
Could be. Good
There's that
point.
possibility. You know what I mean? But are you like, oh, you call the cops? Like, hey, man, I see a bike on the side of the road.
No.
It's a thing. I know
Right.
when that thought first kicked in my mind, it really fucked me up. It was over in Garner, North Carolina. There was a bike beside a cul-de-sac. I'm like, oh man, dude, I've been watching. That's when I knew I needed to stop listening to true crime.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's one of those things. But yeah, I mean unless you walk by and you see the decaying arm sticking out, I
Yeah.
don't think I don't think anyone thinks anything of it.
All right. So, where are we at?
I'm sorry to fuck you up, dude. I'm so
No,
sorry.
no, that's a good. Like, that was a good analogy. The bike on the side of the road. Like, yeah, you're good. Good point, man. Like, the shoe is outside the tree. Like, you see a shoe, it's a shoe. Like,
Yeah,
it sat there for that long. Like, it just. I guess like I just couldn't get past it in my mind. Like, I know one of the worst smells that you could possibly ever smell is decomp. And I just that's something that I couldn't get past is how nobody could smell that body. You know what I'm saying? Because I know
yeah. That's the big thing
anytime
right there.
you can get, oh my God, it's like that smell goes quite a ways. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna look up on my phone real quick where exactly this body was found. See if they have a map somewhere we can pull up.
I know one thing. I'm looking at the time, and I feel like this is going to turn into a two-parter.
It might. It might. It's we got a late start and everything. So Bella gets found. Well, she's not Bella yet. So the body gets found. Cops do the investigation. They find the hand, they find the shoe, they find the clothes. The pathologist comes in. He starts doing all his pathology science shit, and he determines that she's like roughly 35 years old. Is that correct?
On
And
the
she had
30 on this, okay, so it was between 25 and 40, but it was on the 35 side
okay,
more than it's on the 25 side, I think is what he determined.
okay. So
Something
she's
to
a
do
little bit
with,
older.
like, and another thing is he noticed that she had had a child. That was something else that I remember reading was, I guess there's something that happens with the hips after childbirth that, that I don't even want to get into it because I'm no
It's some
expert
girl
on women's
science, and
anatomy. Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, girl science just scares me. So I'm going to take your word, and I'm going to trust that that guy wasn't just a complete sexist asshole. And he's like, yeah, bitch had kids.
She got hips, you bet your
So
boy.
she had hips for days.
My thing is like when they found the skull, that's probably where they got caught up the longest. Just like, look at those teeth. There's no
There's
way that any dentist in the world, there's somebody's going to come forward because there's no way they worked on that mouth because that was something he noticed was with there was evidence that one of the teeth had been removed through a dental practice.
so I think that if I recall correctly, they didn't release all of the information about the teeth to the public because they wanted to save some of it. I don't remember what exactly happened, but from what I recall, they say, and this is based off a morbid episode I listened to where they talked about how they only released the bottom teeth versus the
Are you,
top teeth, even though the top
oh
teeth
my
were
God. Are you
clearly. That's again, I didn't fact check any of that shit. I'm like, these girls know what the fuck they're talking about. I'm going with it. So I believe that may have been a thing. And I think the reason that they did that is because there were teeth missing on the back end. Now, the tooth that was missing up front is one of the only theory that I can come up with that I didn't see anywhere else, and I don't know why. Evil tooth fairy.
oh my
That
God.
bitch wasn't brushing her teeth right.
It makes perfect sense. See, this is the English version of the Tooth Fairy. This is the
The
Tooth
Brothers
Fairy
Grimm.
there has hairy arms and hairy
couple,
armpits and
couple extra moles that shouldn't be somewhere,
right serves you sloppy joes instead. You don't get $5.
Well, sir, they're Josephs over there. Oh yeah, you don't get $5. You get a pint. You're old enough to lose teeth. You're old enough to drink over there.
I know one of the things that they found was the piece of cloth inside of the mouth, which everywhere that I read, they all like wanted to bring attention to the fact that it was a piece of what was it, taffeta? I can't even say that word, which was I really felt like they just wanted to look fancy naming off the fabric. You know what I mean? Because I don't feel like
Yeah,
the
it
type
was.
of
It was
fabric
like
had anything to do with it.
like the word plethora. It's like you
Exactly.
did. You didn't need to say that shit. You could have just said there's a lot of them. You know. But I guess when you have the title, like I'm assuming that this pathologist is like the Sir General Master Pathologist of Worcestershire because they had like they were real big on titles over there. And if you have a
Yeah.
title like that, you got to use fucking smart words.
I guess
That's a fact.
maybe they thought that if they illustrated there was a fact piece of taffeta or whatever, that somebody would come through like, oh, that's a silky fabric. Somebody special must have had that. Like
Yeah, oh yeah.
it was probably just a
With the
handkerchief. It was probably soft on the nose because back then people carried around handkerchiefs. They washed themselves. I know my
yeah.
granddad did.
Well, they
So,
tried using like the Atlanta serial killer tactic. Tried to match the fibers without the fibers. Because the
exactly.
shoes, because you mentioned the shoes earlier. Now the shoes was an important element of the story because they only made like 400 pairs of shoes, and they tried to narrow that down. They're like, hey, they were sold to this store, this store, this store, and this store in this particular size and this particular date range. So I mean, they really, the pathologist, the guy, whoever team, whatever, doing the investigation, like they they did do a job. It's not like they
Yeah.
fucked it up from start to finish. They had a body. This is,
Dr.
I
Webster was his name, by the
yeah,
way. Shout out to Webster. He was because he found 6 months of wear on the shoe, and that all helped factor in him determining the time of death. And I thought
yeah,
that was neat. You know what I'm saying?
and that's it's a big deal, man. Trying to find. I mean, there's a lot of effort. Like, especially when you hear as many stories as we hear of cops like completely fucking up a crime scene and completely fucking up an investigation. Like, look at Delphi. I mean, they just shit the bed on that entirely.
There was a video.
Well,
They have his voice recorded, and they still
yeah,
drop
that's
him
that's
the
what I'm
ball.
saying. Like, and
Yeah,
these guys are over here like, okay, well, we got a half a fingernail. You know what I mean? Like, dude, if you told me that in 1942 that those cops and those forensic experts didn't know what like bacteria were, I'd fucking believe you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know where their science is, but it's definitely not where we're at today.
I know
So
that
them
one
taking
one
the
of the
effort and doing it.
things that kept coming up was the fact that the person that was in the tree was probably someone who was foreign because of the fact that nobody came forward because he did such a good job of pinpointing the time frame on when this person would have went missing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they
And
go ahead.
nobody ever came forward to say, "Oh, well, this was my Lubella from," because they pinpointed it to have been around 1941 when this person would have probably been put in that tree. And nobody came forward to say that they were missing a loved one from that time. And the only thing I could think of was that it's somebody that was immigrated into the area.
You know, the fact that she was a mother, at least had at least given birth,
Right.
kind of throw things through a loop, right? Like, I understand pregnancy was a lot riskier back then than it is nowadays. Who's to say the child lived that long? But
That's a good point.
thinking that there's potentially a child out there who's missing a mom, somebody, you know what I mean? Like, because there is that possibility. But her being a migrant in the time of World War II is a possibility. There's also the possibility that she was like a single child. Her parents passed away. Her husband's off fighting a war.
Yeah,
You
especially
know what I
during
mean?
this time and the area that it's in. I mean, that is a good point. So many people went missing during that time.
It's just could be anything. Because I know when they floated around the idea of her being, I guess the word's vagrant.
Right.
Somebody who travels along, doesn't maybe doesn't have a house, travels, couch surfs, that type situation. There's that possibility, and then could have been a hooker. Yeah, there's always that possibility. Like, I mean, it's an unfortunate like danger of that job.
Right.
Every once in a while you get that serial killer. It's like fucking terrible, terrible Russian roulette, but with more pimps. So
I know that they wasted no time trying to get out the pictures and everything into the paper. The Jolly Wonkers Daily.
yeah, it did the news spread across the chimney sweep network like that. It took
Absolutely.
4 days to reach the next town.
And like you were saying that they released only the bottom mandible, which really upsets me because there's no way that anybody would have seen that top row of teeth and not knew exactly who that was.
Yeah, especially if the den was in that area. Like that's one of those things that you got a snaggle tooth like that. You got a snaggle tooth like that. It's just the way your life is, and you know there weren't any signs. I think there was like if I recall correctly, there were signs of a potential cavity, but a potential cavity. Yeah, I mean your enamel's wearing out. You're fucking 35. That shit happens. One like One like her teeth were falling out of her mouth. It's just the fact that she was missing a tooth like that was fucking weird.
Yeah.
So, and then
We fell
so
into radio silence at that point. You
nothing.
know, all the
Yep.
excitement kind of died down. And then 1945 rolls around, and that's the beginning of the graffiti.
So the graffiti, that's another element that I wanted to talk about. So somebody writes who put Bella in the witch elm on a pretty prominent like obsolescence or something like that. I don't
Obelisk.
remember. Yeah. Now in the reading that I did and in the other podcast YouTubes that I listened to on this, the graffiti is something that almost gets completely glossed over, and that bothers me. So I love graffiti. I absolutely love it. It's in particular I enjoy tagging things, and there was a long stretch where you could find some version of my name on signs and buildings all across the East Coast. It's something that I did. It's the only thing that I've ever been arrested for. Now, for you kids listening at home, yes, it is cool as fuck. But having a record can have long term impacts on your life. So, unless your name is Banksy, it's probably not worth it. But this is it's such an important element of the story because street art, by its nature, is expressing some type of pain felt within a community. You think about like recently the George Floyd murals that popped up all over the place. In the past, like one of my favorite Sublime songs, April 29th, 1992, the Rodney King song. The lyrics go, it's about coming up and staying on top and screaming 187 on a motherfucking cop.
Yeah.
It's not in the paper, it's on the wall. National Guard smoke from all around.
Yep.
So even Bradley's in there writing about how like the news isn't going to talk about how we're being treated in the streets. You're just
Exactly.
going to see it on the walls. And
Oh, I lived in
this,
Durham during that time. It was right before COVID when the nation was just all in an uproar about everything that was happening. And everybody had put plywood up over the windows in Durham, and they were letting the local street artists come and paint murals on the plywood. Instead of, vandalism, they were putting the plywood over the windows and everything to keep, from the riots damaging their property. And then they were having the local street artists come and paint murals on there and voicing their opinions. And it was just amazing. It was some of the coolest things I'd ever seen in my entire life.
yeah, Durham's a street. It is there. It is a street smart city. I will say that about Durham. Now, this, I think, I think, I think the coverage of this case says a lot about people's lack of understanding or appreciation for graffiti art or the act of writing something on the wall. Now, this is purely reckless speculation, but obviously some of the locals were having an issue with this, right? So some of the teenagers were struggling with this. But I'm gonna go out on a limb right now and say I don't think some of the locals were too keen on the fact that this body was found on the Lord's Manor, like where the aristocrats lived. The war's going on, and a lot of these rich fucks like they got a pass on the fighting. And in general, I know that British aristocrats, like many of the American ruling class, sometimes get away with murder.
Exactly.
So if I were a scrappy teenager, survived World War II, Britain, I personally, I'd be inclined to think that one of those rich fucks did something, and I could see myself going out in the middle of the night, writing something on the walls.
Exactly.
Especially a big white fuck you. You know what I mean? Who put Bella in the? I can see that. I can see that happening 100%.
In all these major cases, because even Jack the Ripper, there was graffiti involved with that one. That was
Yeah,
one of the.
he wrote what did he write? He wrote From
He wrote
Hell.
something horrible on the walls that we're not going to
Yeah,
repeat. But
he did some weird stuff, and then you know I know that there was another. I tried looking it up before the show, but I can't remember or find it. I kept getting smiley face references, but there was a killing. I don't know if there's a serial killer or not, but after the person had died, somebody went and wrote on a barn wall a message across it. So like, I mean, this type of thing isn't new, but I also don't, this isn't like the killer was doing this. This is something that the people were doing. And I
I
think that there's a big difference in how you look at that message. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's not like BTK's, hey, I'm fucking killing everybody. Blah. You
I
know?
remember right after Tupac died, that guy painted on the walls, "You live by the gun, you die by the gun," and it was a giant mural of Tupac. I remember seeing that as a kid and thinking like, "Wow, that is such a." It's taking a biblical quote and turning it into, street art, and it's so amazing what you can do with graffiti.
You
The
can.
message you can convey.
Um, there is a. I'm gonna screw this up, and this is either I want to say it's Hunter S. Thompson, but he said graffiti is beautiful, almost like hitting a cop in the face with a brick.
Oh, that's
So
only he can say something like that.
that also might have been a Kurt Cobain Nirvana lyric. I don't know. Maybe the two were combined. Kurt was one of those weird dudes. So, no, yeah, man, that stuff's you think about that, and then I'll fucking shout out to the Miles Morales Into the Spider Verse shows, man. They've done a great job highlighting artwork and graffiti and stuff like that. Um, so I do want to talk about the guilty side of this, right? So Bella, so they have all these weird, wild theories that are floating around. The war ends; it kind of loses its steam. Now we got this graffiti that's going on, and then somebody writes a letter into the paper saying that it was kind of cryptic, right? Do you have the letter by any chance?
Let's see here. I had it pulled up a minute ago.
Because this is one of those rare situations where it's like somebody comes out of the woodworks and it makes sense.
So when the letter was first sent to the papers, it was only signed as Anna. And it had, let's see. Let me Google it real quick.
Da, 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 da.
Anna had suggested that Bella was Dutch and part of a spy ring operating in the area.
Straight up McCarthyism.
Right?
It's the
I'm trying to
goddamn
find the
Dutch.
actual letter. Oh, I did find it.
I don't know anything about the Dutch
Oh boy,
people.
I
I
can't
just
even
know.
read this writing.
Oh well. Anyways, long story short, Anna tells him, "Hey, I know who did it." Um, excuse me, I'm losing my voice for a second. Anna's like, "I know who did it. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Fuck you, bitches. You don't need to worry about it." And then the newspaper and the cops were like, "Yo, let's run a story real quick." And they're like, "Hey, Anna, we want to talk to you. How about you come talk to us?" And it's like, "Yo, what up? I'm here. I'm ready to talk."
That isn't how it went down.
That's basically how it went
Basically,
down.
the letter said that the person that was involved, it had nothing to do with witchcraft. It had nothing to do with dark arts. That the person who committed the crime was beyond the jurisdiction of this world, and that now they're with or from the other they're with the on the other side, you know what I'm saying? Basically,
Exactly what I just said.
you nailed it.
High level paraphrasing, my friend.
And when they read that, the first thing they thought was like, well, we got to get the Santa in here.
What a weirdo fucking thing to write in. Beyond the judgment of this realm. Like, it's totally not witchcraft, by the way, but it's not the judgment of this realm. That's exactly what a fucking.
I'm glad that we steered away from all that witchcraft stuff, because if you want to research it and you want to find out about it, like, there's so many different articles on. There was even one I found where there was another a body found kind of close to where this happened, where a guy was pitchforked to the ground.
Oh shit! We have to bring that up. Yeah, this guy, this fucking guy, dude. Somebody, they wanted him dead. They hit him with one of them size, man. Like they hit him. They left it in his neck.
In his neck.
They took a pitchfork and shoved it in his chest and left him on the ground. Dude, they killed him like he was a fucking vampire. Like he was
super dead.
He was about to get back up, dude. They're like, oh shit. They just dude, that's not.
That's what they try to say about, Bella and the witch elm, is they were trying to say that the hand was severed, and it was like, basically what I read was, because crops come from the earth, that we must return to the earth, and that's why they had to sever the hand and bury it back in the ground for the summer harvest or something like that. I was just like, dude,
put that shit in your pipe and smoke it, man. Yeah, dude, it's fucking crazy, man. Yeah, that whole like witch scare thing. You guys can go back and listen to the show I just did, last week's show anyway, about King James. Like the dude, like the reason people think that way and like think it's cool to like just fucking kill witches and shit is because this guy wrote he thought some witches caused a storm to kill his wife. Like, and then boom, witch trials are legal. That's how you get the 1700s shit.
It's funny how like every one of our shows go back to witches. Like, like
witches and
all of our episodes, even the George Washington was a witch.
Dude, we're one good bombing away from believing in witches again. That's what sucks, man. There's gonna be an explosion, the climate's gonna keep changing, and then everyone's gonna be like, it's gotta be witches.
Right. So they managed to track Anna down because I forgot how exactly they figured out. They deduced who she was, and they got her to reach back out, and they wanted to know, like, okay, you got to tell us more. We have to know exactly who you're talking about and what's going on with this. Let's put a pin in this. Let's end this whole thing. So she finally comes in, and she said that she was married to a man who was not the greatest man, and that one night he had went out drinking with his buddies, and they had picked up this Dutch girl, and at some point in time they were riding back, and she passed out in the back seat of the car, and because she was, they were all drunk, they were drinking, they were at the bar, and they thought, well, wouldn't this be funny if we just, put her inside of the tree and she woke up in there and suddenly she's going to change her evil ways.
Well, it's the only way to teach a woman a lesson. Leave her in the woods, tied to a tree.
Right. And supposedly...
It's not like they could read.
Supposedly, this man's name was Jack, I believe it was. He goes back the next day to check and see, if she made it out or if she was okay, whatever. and she was still in that tree.
That is a doorknob. You know.
And after that, the woman said that her husband started having nightmares every night, that this woman would be calling to him from inside the tree, and then she would climb out and point at him. And I
Like
was
it's the
like,
fucking Ring climbing out of a TV.
that was exactly what I thought. I was like, man, I wonder if that movie got the idea from that.
Fucking Edgar Allan Poe shit, man. That's like fucking weird, dude.
The Telltale Heart, yeah.
And they're fucking looking for raven eggs, and you find a skull. Like, you can't. You fuck yourself, dude. Like,
every which way, you know. Oh man, but yeah. So supposedly this drove the man insane, and that's what the lady meant. Why, like he was in the nut house. He was crazy. It drove him mad, and he was beyond the jurisdiction of this world anymore.
So, what the reason that this is, to me, the most credible explanation for this is because because he died before she came forward. He died.
Yep.
So there are records of him being in the loony bin. There are records of him saying he's had these nightmares of this woman in the tree.
And yep.
That's a thing. That's a thing that happened. And you can't, it's not like, because anytime there's any type, like, people have this weird fucking thing where they want to be part of a crime or some shit. Like, they admit to doing stuff. And you see it all the time. You see it all the fucking time.
But in this case, I really believe it. I
do too.
Think it's just because even the graffiti artist, when they finally caught him, I think it was in 1985, or don't quote me on that, but
there's no telling. It was the same guy.
It was either 85 or 95. They actually caught up the person that was doing the graffiti, and they were like, they cleared him of having anything to do with it. It was just somebody who was caught up by the same intrigue that we all are when we read about this woman they found in the tree. You know what I'm saying? It was such a.
So I know that, like, people see something cool, and if you are somebody who's into writing on walls and you don't know what you're doing, if you see something cool, you will go imitate that. Like, there is a I think it's EPR.
Mm-hmm.
I think, but they're an extremist, like, environmental animal rights organization. They're not PETA, in that they just they think you should marry animals or some shit, right? They just they don't believe in fucking weird shit. They're like vegans on crack. And you can go see EPR written in a lot of different places, whatever the tag is, right? But that's just because people saw that it looks cool as fuck. So people go imitate it. They try it out. You know what I mean? So I don't believe they caught the person who was. I believe they caught a person who was writing who put Bella in the, because it's funny,
Another thing is everybody is probably thinking, well, with all the work that's come forward with DNA and the times, why can't they just run a family analysis DNA search on the remains, and then we could solve this mystery once and for all? And by that, I tell you, so the skeleton that was studied, they lost it. They lost
that motherfucker. Hardcore. Fumbled the ball.
No one knows where it is.
All that good work tracking down fucking shoelaces and shit, and they lost the goddamn skull. It's just gone.
When you look up the story, there's a photo that a lady had reconstructed the face, and usually she has a skull to work with, and she builds onto the skull and makes a recreation. I believe who was she? There was another famous person that she recreated the face of.
She's a world class, like,
absolutely.
I don't remember her name. I don't have.
But with this one, she had to use the picture of the skull because I
Yeah,
believe
she had to use the picture of a skull and all of the negative biases that she had for people who have crooked teeth like that,
because the
all mixed into
university
one.
that had done the research had lost the skull. And I was just like, they didn't lose it. It's probably like the top piece. It's probably the angel of the tree somewhere in one of their many universities on England.
Yeah, yeah, some weird like it's the skull that's in Cambridge universities or Oxford University. It's like it's in their A&P
It's a
class.
speakeasy, like the people who, if you know, you know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's they have a lot of weird pubs over there. Like
Oh,
that,
you know
I
which
went to
man?
one.
Man, that's her right there. That's Miss Bella.
It's- There's 7 people in an entire town who know that joke, and they pass it down to their kids every year. Well, Jimmy, if you lost your second tooth, have a beer. Now, one of the things that I picked up on was like, why didn't this woman? We talked about it pre-show. Why didn't this woman come forward and say anything? And she, according to her, from what I can gather, she got kind of lost when the news broke because there were so many different weird theories that were out there. But it wasn't until like she started putting the pieces together. It took her a while to figure it out. Now I think there's also an element of 1930 something, 1940 something. This is before women really joined the workforce. So divorcing somebody was a big deal back then. So family secret probably needed to stay a family secret back then.
Exactly.
And then now there's I'm gonna plug a show on Apple TV. It's called Blackbird. It's about a so it's got the guy, so the gentleman who played Richard Jewell in the Atlanta bombing and the Olympic bombing. He plays alleged serial killer Larry Hall. And then in that it's very well acted. The guy who's in the Kingsman's in the movie. Great fucking show. They have great chemistry, great film. And his Larry Hall's brother doesn't want to see him as a serial killer. So he ignores everything that's in there, everything that he's doing, because it's
Oh,
his
wow.
brother. He doesn't want to see it. You know what I mean? Even though all of these signs are there, he's never seen him kill anybody. He's just a weirdo. He got picked on. He's strange.
Right.
Um, so her, maybe she didn't want to see her husband as somebody who actually killed somebody. Maybe he
We,
was just kind of
yeah.
off.
There's so many times that people, when they're recounting, it's like the first thing they say is, "Oh, the signs were there." But I just ignored it because nobody wants to look at their significant other and be like, "Oh man, that person was a monster." It took we talked about Ted Bundy earlier, and what was his wife's name? Anne, was it Annie? Something like that.
Yeah, I don't recall.
She was on his main defense line until he finally came out and said, "Yeah, I did it." You know what I mean? Like, and finally, then she, stopped charging that flag and realized, like, oh man, I was with the monster. And that's the whole point of these people is, they can be charismatic. Not everybody is all the way bad. Like, there's
Yeah,
some good in everyone.
where everything is gray. As
It
much as
doesn't
we would like
say
for things
anything
to
about
be
you if
right
you
and
brought
wrong.
out the human in the monster. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. And talk about all the signs were there. If you don't know you're looking at a problem, you're not going to know those are factors in the equation. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, like I'm a quirky fucking dude, man. I, I'll throw in jokes that people will never understand, and I'll
right.
just sit here and laugh to myself and obscure references that come out of my mouth. And if you don't know that you're looking at it, you're not going to know it's there. So yeah, that's a tough situation to be in, to thinking your husband's a fucking murderer, but he's also, going crazy saying is she and shit all fucking night. You know what I mean? Like how do you square that? So shout out to that lady for actually coming forward, because she could have just kept on living her life.
Exactly. You know, another thing is because he had already passed, maybe she didn't want to bring, like, because I've always been raised, you don't speak about the dead, you know.
Yeah, there's that possibility too.
Maybe she
You
just
know,
wanted to let that rest. But one thing is
there.
for certain is we never did figure out who Bella was. And
Yeah, still a mystery to this day. She's been lost a couple of times, and that fucking sucks, dude. It fucking sucks, man. So rest in peace, Bella.
right. It's like Floyd. He's never going to make it out of that cave.
Yeah, well, it's one of the things in life, man. Well, John, I certainly appreciate the work you did tonight, and
This was a page turner, that's for sure. And
significantly less depressing than the fucking Israel keys. So, all right, buddy.
yeah,
Hey, man, you have a good night, all right?
take
Thanks,
care,
everybody who's
man.
listening. Like and share, send everything. We need to hear back from you. We love you guys. Bye.